Today, we're going to dig into the story of King Menahem of Israel. This is a story about a ruler who literally clawed his way to power, held onto it for a decade through sheer brutal force, and ended up paying a price so high it basically doomed his entire kingdom.
So how does a kingdom actually die? Is it one big, catastrophic event? Or is it something slower, a kind of decay from the inside with these sudden moments of crisis? Well, King Menahem's reign is a perfect example of that slow, painful decline. To really get a handle on Menahem, you have to understand the absolute chaos he came from. By 752 BC, the northern kingdom of Israel was in a complete death spiral. King Zechariah, murdered after just 6 months. His killer, Shallum, well, he only lasted 1 month before he met the exact same fate. At this point, the crown wasn't being inherited, it was being taken by the sword.
All right, so let's dive into how Menahem himself jumped right into this bloody cycle, carving out his own throne of assassins.
Okay, so Menahem marches his forces from Tirzah, which was the old capital, to the current one, Samaria. Right away, that tells you this wasn't some random act of violence. No, this was a planned military coup. His title, Son of Gadi, strongly suggests he was a military commander, not some long-lost royal. He saw a power vacuum, he marched on the capital, killed the guy who just killed the last king, and took the throne for himself.
You know, grabbing power is one thing, but holding on to it, that's a whole different game. And Menachem's method for making sure everyone stayed in line, well, it was nothing short of horrific. He decided to rule through absolute, terrifying fear. But of course, not everyone just accepted this new military strongman. There was a city, Tipsah, that resisted his claim. They refused to open their gates to him, and in response, Menahem decided he was going to make an example of them, an example that no one in the entire kingdom would ever forget. And this is where it gets just unbelievably grim. This act reveals his whole strategy. This wasn't just battlefield violence. This was calculated political terror. The account from the Book of Kings is shockingly graphic for a reason. It was designed to send a crystal-clear message to every other town and city. Submit to my rule or face something truly unimaginable. So what's the real takeaway here? What this brutality really shows is just how broken the kingdom was. I mean, Menahem was using the same terror tactics that the rising Assyrian Empire was famous for, but he was using them on his own people. The nation wasn't just facing threats from the outside, it was literally tearing itself apart from within. And get this, while all of this chaos and violence is consuming the northern kingdom of Israel, its southern neighbor, Judah, is experiencing the complete opposite. Under King Azariah, you might know him as Uzziah, Judah was stable, it was prosperous, it was secure. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Now, the biblical writers, they point to a very specific reason for Israel's decay, what they call the sins of Jeroboam. This was the foundational problem. Think of it as a kind of political and religious original sin that every single king of the northern kingdom, Menahem included, kept on doing. So what were these sins? We're not talking about personal morality here. This was official state policy. The kingdom's very first ruler, Jeroboam, set up a totally separate religious system for one big political reason, to stop his people from going to the rival capital, Jerusalem, to worship. So he sets up golden calves, his own priesthood, his own holy sites, and for the biblical authors, this spiritual rebellion was the root cause of all the political chaos that followed. So, as if this internal rot wasn't bad enough, a massive external threat was now looming on the horizon. An empire was rising that was about to change the rules for absolutely everyone in the region. In 745 BC, a new king comes to power in Assyria, Tiglath-Pileser III. The Bible calls him Pul. And this guy was a total game changer. He was a ruthless conqueror who turned Assyria into an unstoppable military machine. He just starts swallowing up kingdoms one by one, and wouldn't you know it, Israel was directly in his path. So Menahem now faces the ultimate test. The Assyrian army is knocking on his door. As the king of a fractured, weakened nation, how could he possibly survive this? Well, his solution was brutally simple. He would just pay them to go away. He offered the Assyrian king an absolutely enormous sum of money, 1,000 talents of silver. But here's the thing, this wasn't just a bribe. It was a payment for protection. Menahem was basically asking the most powerful king on earth
to officially approve his very shaky, violent claim to the throne. And just to put that into perspective for you, 1,000 talents is about 75,000 pounds of silver. I mean, that is a truly staggering amount of wealth for a kingdom that's already in turmoil. This payment was going to have some devastating consequences. So where did he get the money? Menahem slapped a heavy tax on the wealthy elite of Israel. This put a huge economic strain on the country. But even more importantly, this moment marked the end of Israel's independence. From now on, Israel was a vassal state, basically a puppet of the Assyrian Empire. Sure, the Assyrians took the silver and left, but everyone knew they'd be back.
So what was the final legacy of Menahem's 10-year reign? He had survived, yeah, but at what cost? He had essentially put his kingdom on life support, and it was running on borrowed time.
His strategy was really consistent if you think about it. He dealt with any threats from the inside with extreme violence, and he dealt with threats from the outside with massive payments. It was a strategy of pure, brutal pragmatism. And you know what? On a personal level, it actually worked for him. Unlike the guys who came right before him, Menahem held on to power for a full decade. He died of natural causes, and his son actually inherited the throne. For one brief moment, it looked like he had finally brought stability to the kingdom.
But it was a total illusion. The stability was paper thin. His son, Pekahiah, lasted only 2 years before he was also assassinated, starting the exact same cycle of violence all over again.
And this timeline just shows you the catastrophic result. Menahem's policy of paying off Assyria only delayed the inevitable. Just 20 years after his death, the kingdom of Israel was completely wiped off the map, forever. That tribute bought a decade of life for a king, but it set the stage for the death of a nation.
So we're left with this question, right? What was Menahem? Was he a pragmatist who made the only move he could to save his people from being destroyed right then and there? Or was he a short-sighted tyrant who, just to keep his own throne safe, sold his kingdom's entire future for a pile of silver? It's a tough one, and it's definitely something worth thinking about.